Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for showing up. This is going to be part 2 of the Jaguar rebuild. As I described in the very first part of part 1, originally this was going to be one entire video, but I realized it was going to end up being 10 hours long, and there was no way everybody was going to watch that, and that there would be content that you guys wanted to see and missed, or that I had to cut out to keep it reasonable for you guys to watch. So today, we're going to go through and replace all the capacitors. And when I say replace all the capacitors, well, I kind of already did, and then I realized the video would be too long. So that's what it looks like when it's done. But we're zoomed out, and so you guys aren't going to get to see that too much. But we're going to dive right into this video, and I'll show you how we're going to replace all of these guys, and we'll do a test at the end and show you guys a quick and dirty way of how to get a composite video out on one of these so that you can test your console and see if it will actually work and make sure everything's functional and all that stuff. I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you at the end of the video. Alright guys, so rounded up all the capacitors. I took me a little break, and we're ready to start reassembling some stuff, or I say reassembling. We're going to start pulling these capacitors off and replacing them. The only one, the one that I'm going to do first is this guy right here. This is on this particular board is a Panasonic, and it's a 22 UF 35 volt capacitor that I did not have. And when I say I didn't have it, I don't have any of the 35 volts. I had one 50 volt left, and so I wanted to do him absolutely first before I did anything else, because I've only got one of those, and I don't want to accidentally stick him in the wrong place. Well, let me go ahead and tell you what's going to have to happen before we get any further carried away. We're going to have to switch this tip over. I've got my real large component tip on here for removing large legs and things like that off of components, and it's just not going to work for what we're doing. So let me get that switched over. We'll do a hot changeover on it. It'll be a little bit of a challenge. Now, anytime you're going to do a hot swap on a tip or something like that, you want to be excessively careful. This stuff is going to be, well, currently we're at 412 degrees C, so this is not cold. This is very, 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 very warm. This will absolutely burn you in a moment's notice. So, a little precaution. We're going to give him just a second to warm up. When I say a second, we're going to give him a few minutes to warm up all the way. And we're going to reflow the solder joints on this guy. These solder points are particularly small. They're not going to be too bad to replace, they just are particularly small on this board. Not nearly as small as you know, a newer gen console or anything like that. They're just small for the size board that I would say for this generation board, they are extremely tiny. Like I said, not a huge deal, nothing we can't handle and get sorted out, but something we need to be mindful of. See if that's got enough heat in it now. Much better. And again, the technique here, the trick to this guy, is first and foremost be looking on your board, which you guys are probably not going to be able to see. There's a tiny little plus mark on the positive side of electrolytic capacitors. That would indicate that the opposite side of that hole would be your negative. And that is always denoted by the light colored, by the stripe. Whether it's light color or in this case dark colored, that would denote your negative on that side, so make sure you put them in right. That was the only Panasonic cap in this board, which I did find a little bit interesting. Not that it matters, particularly. Panasonic makes good caps. They're not as good as, say, Rubicons or Nichicon caps, but they're pretty good. They're a pretty good capacitor overall. Tack him in place and then hit the other side. We're going to do these again. Generally, I will remove all of them at a time, and in some of my other videos, I've done that. And in some of my other videos, I have removed them one at a time. This one, I'm going to remove one at a time for a very particular reason. And the reason we're going to go one at a time on this particular board is because I don't know off the top of my head roughly what any of these are. I mean, when I say that, I've taken a look at the board, I've looked at it, I've pulled out a bunch of the capacitors already for it and gone ahead and set them aside, but I don't know for 100% what these are. So I'm going to go one at a time just to be on the safe side. Sorry, my sorry, my dad just texted me out of the blue. They are currently building a house. Great for them. My dad is a builder, and he's got, as I'm an electrician by trade, he tends to call me for any electrical related questions, and I'm always happy to answer them. The question he had this time, he is elected to do most of the electrical himself, which I fully support. And I say that only because I know he's got, he's been building houses for the better part of 30 years. Now, while he's not an electrician necessarily, he's going to be kind of overseen by a resident electrician. We don't live in the same state, but he's going to be kind of overseen by a resident electrician. But he calls me for any questions, as he's mounting panels and stuff. The question he had this time was, what was the minimum height that his breaker panel could be? And the answer to that is 6 foot. So the capacitor we're removing next is a 2200 UF, and this guy is on a very large plane, very large ground plane, and he is really not going to like to let go. He's going to take some serious heat. And I was not paying super close attention. I was talking about a breaker panel, and so I did not put enough heat into it before I started to remove. Not a huge problem. Just go back in and reflow that side. 6 foot from the floor to the top of the cabinet is the answer to that question. The way to remove these guys is, again, put a finger over the capacitor you're trying to remove, okay, so that you can wiggle that capacitor, okay, and pay attention to the legs on the bottom side of the board. We're going to apply plenty of heat. And pull that guy right on out. Now, the exact capacitor that they had in here, this was a KMF, which is the brand 2200 6.3 volt. I don't have any of those. What I do have is a Nichicon 2200 25 volt, and physically they are the same size around, but the 25 volt one is quite a bit larger. So what do you do in that situation? Well, what I did is I roughly reassembled the board. I put the board back into the case, and I checked the height from the top plate that goes over and saw how much extra space I had. And so I'm going to stick him in here, and I'm going to tack him in place. Light little tack. Might not even tack him in place. I'm just going to stick him in here. I'll fold these legs all the way over for now. We're going to double check our height. Because if this doesn't work, we've got some other options. But if it will work, we want to absolutely use what we have. So we're going to drop him down in there. And then we're going to take our top cover and just use our eyeballs. We're just going to use our eyeballs. And we're going to put our top cover back down, which can be a little bit of a pain. And we're going to just take a look and see. So it's going to touch the top of that capacitor. Our board is, but it's not going to stop us from coming all the way down in place. So I think we're probably good to go on that. I checked it before and it looked really close, but it looked like it would work, which is why I went ahead and dropped him in. So if you run, and you're going to run into that. If you run into, you don't have the exact same size capacitor, whatever else, don't panic. Check your height, and then, make the determination, Check your height, make your determination about what you think, if it'll fit. And then loosely, if it's apparent that it's not going to even be close, don't waste your time. If it's going to be close, by all means, stick him in there. Stick him in there and test fit it. I'll tell you what. I don't know whether I need to go up on my heat or what. There we go. Just really not happy with any of that. Go ahead and stick him in and give him a little test fit. See how it's going to go over for you. If everything fits like it should, great. everything doesn't, then don't waste your time. Don't fight it. Go ahead and pull them back out, and drop back and punt on it, because it's not worth potentially damaging the board. There we go. Sometimes these things will just fight you tooth and nail. Sometimes they'll just fight you tooth and nail. Flip our component legs off, and that should be pretty good. The next one is going to be, the next of the big boys is going to be a 16 volt 330. On these larger ground planes, sometimes they can be a little bit of a challenge. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to crank my temp up just a little bit. We're going to reflow this joint. Not sure if the solder that's on here is non-leaded. It looks non-leaded. It doesn't look as bright and silvery as everything else, and non-leaded solder can be a little bit of a challenge to keep clean or to desolder. So if you run into that, don't panic. That's what I always tell you, don't panic. Go up on your temp, reflow the joint if you have to. Whatever needs to be done. Now we get into where we have got a small issue. The issue that we're having is this solder, or this leg, does not want to, pretty much no matter what I do, does not want to remove. It doesn't want to pull the solder out of it. So we're going to first try some soldering braid. See where that gets us, see what kind of progress that gives us. If solder braid does not work, and I don't expect it to, we're going to try a hand pump. If the hand pump doesn't work, then we're going to physically go ahead and cut that leg off completely. And desolder it a different way. You be careful with your solder braid. The solder braid can very easily and quickly get stuck to your board like mine's done. That happens. Okay. So, what we've got is a leg that just does not want to remove. We're not going to panic. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and clip him off and get rid of that guy. Because if I had to wager, what it looks like is going on, and you guys again are probably not going to be able to see this. Try to get it up here where you can. Focus. Not going to focus for me. This leg's bent over and it's got solder on top of it. And a lot of times when they solder these and they flow these, solder runs all the way through the board, which is great. But it gets attached to the top side and it won't unsolder. And you can't drive enough heat into it to get it to unsolder. So, how do you fix that? Go ahead and clip that guy off, just like I've done. A little bit of flux. We're going to flow this leg right on top. Now, I will say this. The hotter, the higher, let me turn on my extraction fan. The higher the temp that you're going to run with your soldering iron, okay, the more careful you're going to have to be about tinning that tip. Now, once you've done all of that, and the thing still won't remove, what do? There is one last option, and I don't recommend this at all whatsoever to anyone, but this is what you do. This is how you get rid of that guy. If you've tried everything in the world to get rid of it and you just can't, grab a hold of the leg with a pair of tweezers. Bring your soldering iron in. Get that component leg nice and warm. Wiggle him until he comes out. And sometimes he's not going to want to push out. So sometimes we have to push down. Just like that. So we started pushing down and he started coming out, which is exactly what we wanted. We're going to sometimes these little legs can really be a pain. Sometimes they can really be a pain. And again, guys, the worst thing we can do here is panic. We don't want to panic. We don't want to panic. We want to take our time, nice and slow, and just see what it's going to take. Trying one small thing at a time until we get the result we're looking for. Just until we get the result we're looking for. Thought I had it. There we go. Removed. What a pain. As I've said before, the last thing that you ever want to do with these guys is panic. You don't get upset. Don't get aggravated. Sometimes things come out perfect, and sometimes no matter what you do, it's going to fight you all the way. Don't worry. Don't panic. Don't be upset, because the second that you begin getting upset, you begin making rash decisions. And making rash decisions leads to damaged boards. And the last thing that we want to do is damage this board. If it means that we have to walk away, then we just got to walk away. And that's fine. Now the next problem that we have is our new cap. The component leg does not want to stick down in there. It doesn't want to go down in our hole. Again, we're not going to panic. We're going to reflow that guy, get him good and hot. This is not the largest ground plane in the world, and our soldering iron and our desoldering gun will definitely handle this ground plane, but for some reason, it just doesn't. Today, I don't know, man, maybe it woke up on the wrong side of bed today, I don't know. But it doesn't like it. Anyway, we're going to reflow that area. We're going to fill that back up. We're going to apply some heat. See what we can get it to do. Now, if all else fails, so far it doesn't look like we're making any good progress with it. There we go. Just heat him up, and he should push right on through, and he'll suck down nice and close to the board, just exactly the direction we want him to. So here's the thing. These two capacitors are backwards. The 2200 UF, its negative lands on this ground plane, and I couldn't tell, even though there's a plus on the board, for sure, but here's what I know. You're not going to attach a positive to a negative on a capacitor, so we've got our answer. We know which one goes where. And we're going to flow this guy in. Just like that. I'm going to touch this guy up. Touch that guy up. And clip our legs off. And a quick little touch up. Quick little clean. And those two guys are done. All right. I'm going to have to break free for a few minutes. I'll be right back. Our dishwasher went on the fritz the other day, and I've got to go pick up another one. So I've got to leave right here in just a few minutes. So I'll be back here shortly, and we will hopefully wrap this guy up. All right, guys. Sorry about that. So a couple of things real quick about the delay in getting back. Dad called again. They're building their house. He had some electrical questions, and then I had to go pick up a new dishwasher, which it turns out I actually did not need. Opened up the panel to go ahead and replace it, and found several burned wires. So I say several. It was on the neutral side, and it was stranded wire, which is interesting. But it is what it is. At any rate, it got fixed up, and it's ready to rock and roll now. We're over there running some tests on it, making sure that it's going to run properly. But we're going to dive back into this. And I'm currently got my soldering iron and stuff heating up. While it is heating up, we're going to go through and figure out, we're going to change out all of these 10 UF 16 volts. Again, I say this in all of my videos where I do capacitor replacements. Capacitors are simple, okay? And I'll use this one for example. I'm not sure if you guys can see that properly. Tell you what, let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. There you go. So that is a 22 UF 6.3 volt capacitor, right? So what we need to replace this with is a 22 UF, 22 microfarad, 6.3 or higher voltage. So the capacitance is the farads, the UF, right? And the voltage has got the little V beside it, right? For voltage. You can go up in your voltage, but you cannot go down in your voltage, and you cannot go up or down in your capacitance. Now, let's talk reality here. Can you go up or down in your capacitance if you're an electrical engineer? Sure. However, here's what I'll say. An electrical engineer has already approached this problem. They've already looked at it. They've already determined that what this particular circuit needs is this amount of capacitance for it to run properly. And I don't go messing around with that. I'm no engineer. I know a little bit about electrical. Well, I know quite a bit about electrical. I know a little bit about electrical engineering, electronics engineering. But what I don't do is question what the engineer said. If the engineer said it needs a 2200, it's getting a 2200. Whether I like that or not, whether it means I can finish my project or not, is irrelevant. It's getting that 6.3 or that 2200 microfarad. That's what it's getting. So in this case right here for this guy, this one is a 10 UF 25 volt. So it is getting, because I just happen to have that exact one, it is getting a 10 microfarad 25 volt. That's what it wants. That's what will make it happy. And that's what we're going to give it. Man, I'll tell you what, these solder joints, never in my life have I seen the solder. I guess they went to a non-leaded solder, like I said earlier. And it just doesn't want to heat up no matter what you do to it, no matter what temperature I'm running. I've currently got my desoldering gun sitting at 420. Let me turn my extraction fan on here, and it just doesn't want any of it. That one come out a little bit better. And as I've stated before on a bunch of these videos, I'm just double checking, make sure I got the right capacitor for the right one. 10 volt, 25 microfarad. That's not a picofarad. No, that's a 10 microfarad, 25 volts. Sorry. And we're going to put the same thing back in it, just a little bit nicer of a capacitor. As I said in all my videos, you pay real close attention to your positive and your negative orientation on your capacitors. Make sure they are correct. As you can tell, I don't know if you guys can really tell this or not, Atari, they left these legs on these guys absolutely incredibly long. I mean, look at that. Look at this guy right here. Look at how much play is in that guy right there. I mean, there's just a mile of extra leg. I don't like that. I like my capacitors sit nice and low on the board, nice and tight, and so we don't have any problems in the future. Again, the proper technique is to put a finger on top of the capacitor that you're wanting to remove and wiggle that capacitor around. That way you can feel it. You can feel it. The more of these you do, you will learn to feel that capacitor being shifted around by the desoldering gun, and you'll know when it's free and ready to go. That's the proper technique. That's what you should be doing. That's what I want you to be doing. And I want you to also focus on getting those legs, just like I do, nice and tight down to the board. We don't want a lot of capacitors sticking up. Just double checking because I've got one here. I've got another one there. Okay, so this guy is right here. And the reason I want to go ahead and replace all of these 10 microfarad 25 volt capacitors is because I'm doing them, I'm here, and it's real easy because I know there's multiple of these to go ahead and replace all of those at once, solder all of those in, and then continue to move down the line with them. Now, I'm not particularly worried right now, note my phrase, right now, of making sure that all of these are standing up perfectly straight. I will do that. That is something we are definitely going to do, but I've not reached that point yet. Once I go to soldering these guys in place, I will go through and make sure that they are all standing perfectly vertical, nice and proud, before we final solder them in. Now you'll notice every one of these I take out, I am looking, physically double checking to make sure that what I pulled out is the correct voltage and the correct capacitance, so that I am 100% about what I'm putting in. I don't want to put in the wrong thing and then regret that in 5 minutes because, or 20 minutes when I realize I've soldered in the wrong one, or worse, the console doesn't work because I put in the wrong one. Uh-oh. Stubborn little jerk. There I was thinking everything was going great. Everything was just cheery as it could be. And it's always one. There's always one. There's one in every crowd. Now I'm going to breeze around my board and double check. I think that's all of them. I've got one more right here. One more all the way up here. And what you guys will see me doing is I flip back and forth over to the board. I like to triple, quadruple check that the component that I am going after is the one I'm intending to go after. The last thing that you want to do, and it's not the end of the world if you do it, but the last thing you really want to do is desolder pull the wrong component out. It's not going to kill you. It's not the end of the world. You just put the right. You just remove that one and put the correct one in. So it's not the end of the world, but sure does make things a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm going to breeze through the rest of these. Those are all 1UF50s. That's 116. This is 116. That's a 4.750. That's a 2.250. Okay. So those are all. That's all of those. We're going to flip this board over, and we're going to solder all of these guys in that we just took out and replaced. I'm not going to worry about clipping component legs right now, not even a little bit. All I'm concerned with at this particular moment is getting these components soldered back in properly, making sure they're in place. Got a good joint on them. That's my primary concern. We're at this particular moment. Adding just a dab of flux to each one. Not trying to go nuts. Just making sure I didn't miss any, and then we're going to start clipping these legs off. And we're just going to touch these right here up. We don't have to. But just to pretty them up a little bit, we're going to give them just a slight little touch up. We're going to go right here in the middle of the board and catch this guy real quick. This is our 4.7 microfarad 50. Those are 100s. Nope. know we got a 4.7 out here somewhere. There we go. So if you'll notice, the size of the one that we took out is this big. This is a 50 volt 4.7 microfarad. This is also a 4.7 microfarad 50 volt. Why is it so much smaller? Technology. That's it, just technology. We've moved along a little bit in life. We've gotten a little bit better, and that's the reason why this one is just a little bit shorter. Okay. Got another one that's being a little stubborn. You're going to have that, guys, when it comes to these boards. You're going to have capacitors that are stubborn. You're going to have components that don't want to remove. They seem like they don't want to. You're going to run into that. You know, and what do I always say? Don't panic. So this is a 2.2 UF50. Which is going to be this little bitty guy here. Okay. That's what I always say. Listen, don't panic. Don't panic. If it doesn't want to come out, just take a good deep breath, slow down, and we'll get it. We'll get it. We'll get it out. You know, if it takes us just a little bit longer, then it takes us just a little bit longer. It's not the end of the world. Not the end of the world at all. It's no problem. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Don't get upset. Don't get worried. 10 UF 50. 10 UF 50. Gotta find that guy, huh? I know I pulled almost all of them out. There it is. Never, ever, ever panicking. Just taking our time. So all we're doing is just taking our time. A nice little relaxing afternoon. If we get a component that's stuck, we're not going to let it ruin our day. There's another 10 UF50. We're not going to let it ruin our day. We're going to go nice and slow. Take our time. It's all going to work out absolutely fine. We got another one that's being stubborn. You're subject to have a lot of these. You're subject to have a lot of these capacitors. Here's the thing, guys. This solder, even if it hasn't been used, even if this board hasn't been used in 10 years, a lot of this solder has been sitting on here, is dried up, right? And what you end up with is what we call a cold solder joint, right? And that is where you have a physical break in your solder joint. Okay? It may look perfect from the outside. It may look beautiful. But inside, it might be broken. That happens. That can absolutely happen. And a cold solder joint will cause the system to not work at all at best. You know? Worst case scenario, well, I say that, you know, what a cold solder joint is going to do is make the device, the unit, not work. That's just what it's going to cause every single time. And it's going to cause, you know, it could be an intermittent issue. You know, you might get a console that works good part of the time. Okay. Still doesn't want to come out. And we are still not upset. We are still not panicked. We are just as cool as a cucumber, relaxed, calm, all of those things. That's what we are. And that's what we're going to stay. So I'm trying to get the original leg back down in the original hole so I can put a little bit of pressure on it the other way. You know what that is? That is just an exceptionally large ground plane. That's why it's given us so much trouble, and it has absorbed, as you guys can see. So this is the joint we're working on, and all of this all the way around is all ground plane. And that solder has wicked, through normal usage, through normal soldering, through normal factory usage, has wicked all the way up to the top leg. That happens. We're going to clip him off because we don't panic. We don't worry. We don't get upset. We're just going to clip him off, and we're going to try to free it a slightly different by clearing it that way, and maybe if we're lucky, what we can do is take our tweezers, once we find them, there they go, and what we can do is heat up the other side of this board and shove our tweezers through the hole. Again, you know, what is the correct technique to use? Well, depends on what we're doing. A lot of times the correct technique is just as simple as what worked. You know, guys, what worked? Okay. That is not working either, so we're going to do this one more way is what we're going to try to do. We're going to take the soldering gun and we're going to rest him just like that. We're going to heat up this side too. I heard it. I heard it. I heard it. I heard it let go. Thought I heard it let go. It pulled a lot of solder out of it. She's about free, guys. She is just about free. Just doesn't want to let go. Okay. So what we have on our hands here is a fighter. That's what we've got. We've got us a fighter here. It's okay. Ow. That did not feel as pleasant as I would have wanted it to feel. I did not like that. It hurt. I mean, it is like literally almost completely out. It just keeps wanting to get hung up. I'm not quite sure why. Method number 473. Okay, it's time to step up the old game just a little bit. When I say step up the old game, I mean pull out all the stops. I mean pull out every single last one of them. As soon as I find my jar O or my my syringe of flux that I need. I don't want to open. I've got a brand new jar, but I'd really rather not open him. But since I can't find my other one, I really don't want to open this yet. I know that other jar is, but that other tube, there it is, all the way in the back. That's what we were looking for right here. Okay. It is now time to go with the nuclear option. This is the last resort before the last resort. That right there should have done the trick. Got it. That is a particularly abrasive technique. And when I say particularly abrasive, it is particularly rough on the board to apply as much heat as I was just applying. You guys can't even see that. Tell you what, let's do it like this right here. Oh, you can't even see that. Trying to get it where you guys can see it under my magnifying glass. Basically what had happened is the component leg, when Atari installed this, they had folded over at a near 90 degrees around the IC. Sorry, not around the IC, around the board. And when they did that, and then by doing that, one UF50. One UF50. And in by doing that, what they did was made that component want to stay wrapped around the board no matter what you did to it. Because it was at a 90 degree, it was at a perfect 90 degree angle. Okay. We have made it far enough along. Let's go ahead and solder these guys right here in real quick like. Clip these legs off and we'll keep on working. We might even clip these off. We might just tack them in place real quick like and keep on moving so they don't come loose. Alright, moving right on up the board. Always short one. I don't care how many I get out of something. I always end up short one. Every time. This one is a 100 UF 16 volt. We're going to put in 100 UF 25 volt because that's what I got. This one is a 100 UF 16 volt. We're going to put in 100 UF 25 volt because it's what we have. And for our last one should be a 47 UF 16. It looks like he's about right there. Yep. See, by having your finger right there on it, you can feel when it loosens up. So you know when to start wiggling your desoldering iron. If you start wiggling it too soon, you can actually damage things. 16 volt 47. Right here. Okay, let's solder these guys in real quick and then we'll clip all these legs off. Now we can go on our little clipping fest. It's very important to make sure you clip these legs off. Even though the bottom of this has a little piece of cardboard down to keep it from conducting against the metal tray, it is very important to clip these legs off because they can actually lay over and touch another component, and that's one of the most important things we're attempting to prevent. What good is it? What good is it clip these legs, or to not clip these legs off, but to go through the trouble to replace all these components if we just create a short on the board and our board doesn't work? What good is it? We have accomplished nothing. Alright, now do I see any that I've left? Nope, I don't see any that we've left anywhere. Okay, now the last thing that we're going to do, so you have 25, where did he go? Give me just 1 second. Let me breeze through my capacitors up here because I've got a 47 UF25 over here. Yep, okay, we're good. So, the last thing we're going to do as far as desoldering on this board, before we go cleaning it up, is we're going to replace this LED light. It's quick and easy, super painless. I'm going to get a good idea of what the orientation is on it. Now this is a standard 5mm LED. You can replace this with any color you so choose, as long as it's 5 volts and the proper 5mm and the proper voltage. Proper voltage is critical, as is making sure that you put this guy in the correct orientation. Now, we took out a red, we're putting back in a red. Why? Why not put in something a different color? You can put in whatever color you want. It makes me no difference. I don't care. However, I want as much originality, and I say I want this board to look original, I want it to appear original, I want it to function as original. So why change out the LED? Because LEDs usually don't need replacing. Well, it'll be a little bit brighter, most likely. Draw a little bit less power, most likely, and it'll last for 30 more years, 40 more years, you know, however long, depending on this. Console's probably not going to get used all that much. So, guys, there we go. That is the board now, as complete as it can be. The only thing that I want to do is I want to pop the top off of this RF circuit here. Not for any reason. Occasionally there will be a capacitor or two hiding in here, and if there is, I would like to get a look at it and see if we can replace it, see how hard that's going to be to accomplish. We may not be able to get to it. There may not be one in here. It may just be a bunch of transistors. There's usually one. Okay, so to get this guy out, that's going to take some work. There are a bunch of capacitors in here. They're very small. It looks to me like there are some other components in there. I'm not gonna take this apart. To get this completely out, I could, and I will if it ends up not working. We would have to desolder all of these corners, and it would probably be easiest to just pull these three solder tabs and pull the whole thing off the board and hope that gets it. That may not even get us completely off, but that would be the easiest way to do it. We're not going to. I don't see a reason to. I don't see anything we can easily get to. So we're going to leave him be. And if it doesn't work, we end up not working, then we can go from there. So what's left to do on this board? Well, here's what I know. I know that as it sets right now, I don't have a cartridge to test it. I do have a power cord. I do have an RF cord, but I don't have a TV. Well, I do. I've got a TV that takes RF, but it's all the way over there, and I'm not fussing with it. I do have a power cord, so we can plug it up and give it the proverbial smoke test, and make sure that it doesn't catch fire on us when we turn it on. So we're going to do that because I think that's going to be an important test. And then there is actually a way, but I'm going to have to round up some cables to short circuit the cart in, cart out connector on the board, trick it into thinking that a cartridge is in, and to where it will turn on. There is a way to do that, and we are going to do that because my game cartridge is not going to arrive for a few days. We're going to trick it so we can at least get a logo screen. But here's my next problem. In order to do that, well, there's no really an order to do that. I can do that anytime I want. I've got to get some picture, or I've got to get some way to connect this to the screen, so I can at least see the Jaguar logo and then switch over to the red screen of death. To do that is to jumper pin 34B with 35B. That's cart in, cart out. And then what I'm going to have to do is take a connector, composite connector, and I'm going to have to solder to several of these resistors right here, which are our AV ports out. I do know what the cartridge connector is offhand. I do not know which one of these to connect to, so I'm going to have to go and learn about that so we do the right ones. A little bit of Google searching before we get crazy. Once we've got that sorted out, though, we will drag a cable over. This is probably not going to do anything when we turn it on. Hopefully it doesn't blow up in our face, which is entirely possible. Yeah, we're getting nothing. And so you shouldn't. From everything that I've read online, with a Jaguar, without a cartridge in it, you should get no red light whatsoever. Now, we can trick this, and we're going to. The first thing we want to do is we're going to test and make sure we are getting 9 volts coming out of our power port here. We're getting 12, and that's probably close enough. We're flickering up and down a little bit. Yeah, about 12 volts. So we're good there. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to get a signal. We're going to try to jump pins 34B and 35B together temporarily and see if we can't get some sort of a red light to come on the system. So I believe this starts pin 15. I believe this starts pin 15.
Hey.
But I'm going to double check. Again, I'm just going to double check too, real quick. So, yeah, okay. 34B and 35B. This starts at 15B, which is what I thought. So 34, 35B should be these two right here. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. So we can jumper these two right here together. We can bridge them. And we should, in theory, that should give us the connection we want. What I'm going to do, though, instead of going with a huge bridge, I'm going to nip me off a real small piece of this leg. If I can find where it went. I've lost it already. No, I didn't. It's on the end of my... You guys excuse my big head, my big fat head being in the way. Oh my God, what did we do? We were not paying attention to what we did. We definitely bridged them. Okay, so it looks like we're getting the microscope out because I totally did not pay attention, and I had all of my tin where I had tinned my soldering tip remaining, and I may have made a huge mess. Now, if these two here are bridged, it is not a problem because you can see the trace comes up and goes around to both of them. The main thing that I am concerned about is this right there, which brushed right off, so that's good. Again, I don't care about this. Not even a little bit. Proper tool in my hand. No, don't care about that. But it will all brush away, so not concerned about that at all. Let me put a little isopropyl up here. Do a little quick brush on this. Now what I understand is, and again, this is not my information, this is me reading the old Google. What I understand is that if you bridge these two, you don't have to actually ever remove them. The two that we're bridging, by the way, are these two right here. So I'm going to cut me one more tiny little component leg here. We're going to give this one more shot. And hopefully not nearly as stupidly as we just did it. Well, except for holding on to that was apparently impossible. So we'll clip us one more little piece off. Okay, that's good enough. That's not beautiful, but it's not coming off, and we're not looking for beautiful. We're looking for functional. So in theory, I don't know. I've never tried this before. We're going to learn together. I know the interwebs say that bridging that right there together tricks it into saying that there is a cartridge in the port and that it can start and begin its power-up procedure. I don't know. We should get a red light. Let's find out. And we did get our magic red light, which is great news. And so since we've got our magic red light, you know, there's no reset on this. That's pretty silly. There's just a power on and power off. But anyway, so all I've got to do now is go round up an old AV cable. So that's going to take me a few minutes to go dig one out. And then I will find what wires go here. I'm probably not even going to fool with sound. I might, I don't know yet, so that we can get this connected. Once we get this connected, we can at least see a Jaguar logo in theory. And if we see a Jaguar logo, that means that we are in good shape thus far. And then all we're waiting for is a cartridge so that we can actually test the entire console. So you guys bear with me. I told you this was probably going to be a long video. There was a lot to repair, a lot to fix on this guy. And as funny as it sounds, once we get to where we can see the Jaguar logo, that does not mean we are even close to done. We still have all of the plastics to clean up and dress up. We still have the metals to put back in. We still have to find screws. Apparently this requires screws to screw down. We've got to find screws for those, which are not a big deal. We just got to find what is something as close to factory original as we can, because we want this as original as we can. We've still got to clean it up. We've still got to test the controllers once the game comes in, and then once we're done and we got the plastics cleaned up, then we can break out and we can start polishing the scuffs off of the plastic and stuff like that. So thanks for bearing with me again. This video is going to be quite long. We've got a lot more work to do. I'm probably not going to wrap it up today. It's probably going to take at least tomorrow, which will be Sunday, and then it'll probably take some parts of next week before we get this guy all finished up. But in the meantime, we have power and we have our red light, so we have made impressive progress so far. So, in what can only be described as the jankiest thing that I think I have ever done on a console before, I have taken a perfectly good brand new wire, and when I say brand new, I literally, let me reach down and grab it. I just bought this the other day to hook up to my little monitor and extend it out a little bit. So I cut the end of it off, and it comes in on a 3.5 millimeter jack. Glossing over all that, you don't care. Cut the end of it off, figured out which wires went where, and then I'm going to bring the camera down and show you the way that I connected it down here. And hopefully that's coming through on here. So the way that you do this is you bring your composite yellow cable to L6. You take your negative video cable, negative composite, to L16. Left channel audio positive to L18. And then left channel negative all the way down here to C24. And that gets you to where you have composite output. Now, Atari did make and did sell the audio cables for composite. But I don't have them, and I don't have a TV that does the audio out or does RF. I do it. It's all the way over there. It's in the other room, big CRT, and I'm certainly not dragging all this all the way over there just so I can see it fail on composite video. We'll test that once we have the game in. But I wanted to do this because along with jumpering 14B and 34B and 35B on the bottom of the board to lie and say that there's a cartridge in place, this will give you composite output. Now we could take these connections and come off the back of the board, and I've seen some people do it, and we could attach composite connectors, AV connectors right here. We could do that. But I'm not big on destroying this case because they're so rare, so we're not going to do that. I don't know. I may end up leaving a small tail sticking out the back. I may put a small 3.5 millimeter female in it to give composite out. I might do something like that, but I really want to keep the original shell as pristine as possible on this particular console. So let me turn off a few lights real quick, and we're going to pivot this camera down here so you guys can see the screen. And just bear with me, and we're going to give this a test run and see how it comes out and see if we get anything on screen. Now theoretically, as we do this, the only thing, it might just go straight to a red screen. I don't know. It might go to a black screen. It might do nothing. It might blow up in my face, the whole thing. At which point, thanks for watching my channel. There won't be any more videos. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Well, let's see. And ladies and gentlemen, there we have it. That is the infamous Jaguar red screen of death. And they say it's a red screen of death. It's not like the blue screen of death on Windows or any of the rest of it. The red light of death on a Xbox 360 or the blue light of death on a PlayStation. All that right there means is that it received no input from the cartridge. Even though it thinks one's in there now, it's just not receiving anything. So, do we have a working console? So far, so good. I can feel around on the board. I don't feel any heat coming off of anything except for the Jerry chip, the DSP chip, is getting slightly warm. We may put a heat sink on him. The 6800 is also slightly warm. Tom is getting slightly warm. No, the RAM chips are warm. Those all feel pretty good. Clocks are good. All the other ICs are good. Everything seems to be good on it. Just displaying a red screen, so I don't know how much work it's really doing there, but it seems to be pretty good so far. So I guess for now, where we're going to leave this video is we're going to leave this video in mostly done. Mostly done. We're going to go and clean the cases and polish those. And I say polish, if there's a plastic polish that I like to use, I've talked about on the channel before, it's Quicks plastic polish, and I'm a big fan of that. So we're going to use a little bit of Quicks on it. Check a few other things out. Clean the board, clean everything up, clean the board back up, and then we'll make a decision on whether we're going to leave this AV mod on it or not. For now, it is going to remain no matter what, because checking RF will be the last thing I do. Now, I can get this RF board on Console 5. They sell this, or they did the last time I checked anyway. Power jack seems good, so there's no need to replace that. But like I said, we're going to leave this in place because it makes it real easy to connect to my monitor that I have over here, my little mini screen. and there's no reason to disconnect it. It's functional-ish, so we're going to leave it just like it is. We're going to clean the plastics up, and we will be back to conclude this video and finish putting it back together here shortly. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up part 2 of this series. Part 2, we went through, we replaced all of the capacitors and the LED on the board. We double checked everything, made sure everything worked. We cleaned them up and got all of that working, and we did a little test to make sure we had video on it, which came out great. I appreciate you guys spending the time with me and checking this one out. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you get the notification, so that you can check out when we go in and do the final restore, repair, and clean up on the console plastics and get them all back in original condition on those. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.